Whenever someone uses the word addiction, a very stereotypical image appears in our mind. An image of an alcoholic, a chain smoker, or a person who is into hardcore drugs. But this is a very limited understanding of the word addiction. Addiction cannot be merely confined to substance abuse. It is far more complex than that. And in the modern world, if you carefully look around yourself, you will find that every one of us is an addict. It's only a difference of to what degree. We might not be injecting these hardcore drugs in our veins, but we are doing something else in our life with the same level of compulsiveness and commitment. And there are so many things that people become addicted to. People are addicted to video games, even the adults. People are addicted to shopping, to internet, to social media, and the list is really endless. And a lot of you might at this point say that this is not a fair comparison. You cannot compare internet addiction with that of hardcore drugs addiction. But I simply want to say this thing to you, that if you are compulsive about anything in your life, no matter howsoever harmless it seems to you, you are losing one of the most beautiful aspects of being human. You are losing your freedom. Just like a junkie becomes a slave to the drugs, we also become slaves to so many urges that are constantly haunting us throughout the day. If we cannot refrain from checking our phone every 30 minutes, then we are not free. If we cannot refrain from buying things that we do not need, then we are not free at all. And right now these things seem to be very harmless to you, but if you are not going to do something about it, then sooner or later your whole human potential will be reduced to a mechanism of constantly seeking pleasure. And that's not how a conscious person would craft his life. So I'm going to talk about the fundamental cause of our addiction and how we can overcome it. Firstly, I'm not going to talk of these addictions as if they are very different from each other. Because if you think that all these addictions are different branches of addictions, you start thinking that the cause must also be different. Then you start thinking that nicotine must be the cause of smoking, fats and sugars must be the cause of overeating, seeking approval and validation must be the cause of social media addiction, and it is right to a certain extent. But if you are not going to deal with the deeper problem, if you are not going to find out why is it that we become an addict in the first place, then even if you are going to give up some of your addictions today, you will replace them with something tomorrow. You will pick up something else. So it's very important for us to go to the very root cause of the problem. So why is it that all of us become an addict in our life? Blaise Pascal has said that all of humanity's problems stem from this man's inability to sit quietly in the room. I would say that all of humanity's addiction also stem from the same source. Human beings are really compulsive in nature. We cannot sit quietly by ourselves. We need some sort of engagement, some sort of stimulation all the time. And in the absence of anything productive or creative to do, we succumb to our vices. We go on watching these YouTube videos endlessly. We go on buying things that we do not need at all. We go on doing all kind of non-essential things that we regret later on. Why? Because we are shit scared of boredom. We cannot tolerate boredom at all. And sometimes in order to avoid boredom, we are willing to go to a very destructive extent. And there are studies that prove this thing. In University of Virginia, few psychologists conducted a study, and in the study they asked few people to be in a room alone just by themselves. All their personal belongings were taken away and there was nothing left to do in the room apart from one thing. There was an electric switch. If you would press that electric switch, you were bound to get an electric shock, and all the subjects knew this thing. And the interesting thing is that by the end of the experiment, almost 68% of the men and 25% of the women ended up pressing the electric switch. Such is the compulsiveness of human beings to be engaged with something. We are willing to choose getting electric shocks over boredom. So if you want to get rid of any addictions in your life, you will have to learn the art of sitting quietly by yourself. You have to realize that all your addictions express themselves in form of urges. Before you indulge in your addiction, there is this urge. So I want you to sit quietly whenever you have this urge to indulge in your addictions. And don't get up. Whether you are in a public place or a private place, don't get up till the time this urge has left you. The beauty of this whole process is that all human emotions, feelings and urges are really transient in nature. Everything is impermanent. If you are not going to respond to these urges, they are bound to disappear. And I'm not saying that it's going to be easy, it's going to be really, really difficult. Because if you have done something for a really long time, the urge to indulge in that thing is really strong. And when the urge will be there, it would seem as if someone is pulling and pushing you at the same time. But you have to go through this much pain. You have to go through this pain to transcend all the urges, all the addiction. And tomorrow it will be more painful, because tomorrow your urges will come back with more vengeance. So awareness is an arduous process. It's not something easy. But this is a necessity. If you want to transcend your addictions, you will have to go through this process. And this practice alone is bound to make you such a balanced human being. Not only will you get rid of your addictions, but you will also become a more focused, productive and creative person. Because now your energy won't be unnecessarily dissipated in all these non-essential urges, non-essential distraction. The second thing is to create meaningful connections in your life. Johann Hari has written a book, Lost Connections. And in the book, he shares the story of so many hardcore drug addicts who got rid of their addictions not because of any psychotherapy or medical intervention, but just because they got back some lost meaning in their life. They got connected to meaningful people, they got connected to meaningful work. One particular story that I find worth sharing is that of US soldiers. During the Vietnam War, around 1/3 of the US soldiers were using heroin on a regular basis. And heroin is considered as one of the most addictive substances on this planet. The whole US government was concerned. Everyone thought that when these soldiers were bound to get back to their country, almost all the heroin users will end up on streets as heroin junkies. They will commit crimes. But that's not how the whole situation panned out. When these soldiers got back to their country, almost 80% of the heroin users dropped the usage right away. Why? Because they got back to their family, they got back to their children, they found some lost meaning in their life, they had something positive to look forward to in their life. The point that I'm trying to make is that if you are indulging in your addictions, then maybe you lack some meaningful connection in your life. You really need to introspect. If it is your work that doesn't seem satisfying, then it's your responsibility to switch your job, to switch your profession. Work should be something which stirs up joy in your heart, which gives you satisfaction, fulfillment. You should not drag yourself throughout your life just to earn your living. If it comes to people, then you should have people around you who appreciate you, who admire you, who push you in the direction of growth, not the people who are constantly criticizing you and pulling you down. This needs some serious introspection at your end. So I want you to take both of these things seriously. First, you have to learn the art of sitting quietly by yourself. And second, you really need to introspect. You really need to find some lost meaning in your life. These two practices are bound to make you a much more balanced human being. And lastly, I want to say that I'm not against anything in life. If it is alcohol that you want to consume, then go ahead and do it, but not out of compulsiveness. If it is shopping that you want to do, go ahead and do it, but not out of compulsiveness. Things should happen in your life out of choice, not out of compulsiveness. I'm not even against these drugs. Some people have taken LSD and ecstasies and they have transformed their lives. But the people who have gone into anxiety disorders and stress disorders, they are far more in comparison to the people who have transformed their lives using these drugs. So we really have to be very careful. If you are compulsive about anything in your life, then first you really need to drop this compulsiveness. First you really need to become a responsible person. After that, you can experiment with anything in your life. So I hope this video was valuable for you, and if you think that it might be of help to someone, then please share this video with that person.